So this is for my buddy Craig, since he's not here. And we're back. He loves doing that.
Yeah.
Anytime we're at a show, he loves it. So we are back here at SEPC's Southern Exposure in beautiful Tampa, Florida, and I'm being joined by my good friend Robert Guenther from Break 365. Robert,
Great. Thank you.
thanks
you, Ed.
for being here, man.
Ah, this is great.
It's good to see you. Other delays and some crazy travel, and
Right.
but we're here.
Right.
Right.
It's my first time for this event.
You're
and
kidding.
Yeah, for the work I didn't really have much of a reason to come down because really, this is such a retail sales type of conference. But it's been great to be here. I've seen so many, friends and colleagues and gotten to reconnect with a bunch of folks. So it's been nice to be
It's like
here.
a big family reunion.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's interesting being on this side as a participant versus running a show like in my past with United and
I call it being a consumer of the show, right?
Right.
Versus an
That's right.
organizer, which when you're in the middle of it, even stuff like this, you never really quite know how it's going
Right.
until afterwards, or if you actually,
Right.
we all have our trusted, advisors, so to
Right.
speak. But it never feels like it's going off smoothly, especially when
Yeah.
you see how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting to look at it from this side than, being behind the scenes and making sure that things are running as smoothly as they can. But there's always hiccups, but all these shows, everybody seems very happy, excited to be here, and it's like a lot of business is getting done.
Oh, definitely. This is the daddy of the regional shows, I call it. They do a great job.
Yeah.
1999, I believe, the show started. So I started coming shortly thereafter. I haven't been in a number of years. But so Breakthrough 365,
Yep.
Robert, for those that don't know
Right.
your company, what do you do? What are you,
Sure.
who should be calling you? Who shouldn't be calling you? And we'll get into kind of the DC
Sure.
stuff. What's hot right now? Hot topics. I mean, I have my own kind of point of view on, it's a election year. It's not an election. Like why you can and can't
Right.
get things done in DC. So I'd
Right.
like to talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
But tell us a little bit more about Breakthrough 365.
So, as you know, Ed, and others know, I had spent the last 24, 25 years working with the Trade Association World of Fresh Produce, so running government relations in Washington, D.C. And it was just a dream job. I never thought I would fall into that space, but working for this industry in that capacity really was something that I just, again, representing this industry in Washington, D.C. and other places, but more so in D.C., in front of elected officials, administration officials, was just a great honor to do. But it was time, I think, to kind of see what else is out there.
Mhm.
I felt that I really wanted to get a little deeper in some of the issues that I, really wasn't able to get as deep into. So Breakthrough 365 came up, and really, the reason we named the firm this is because we want to break through the clutter, break through all the challenges in DC and get results.
Mhm.
I think developing a small firm, you can really engage with your clients in a different way than you can through a trade association. You can tackle issues that, quite frankly, may not rise to the top of priorities for the folks in DC, but you can continue to highlight those and fix problems. I came to Washington, D.C. I started working on the Hill in 1989. Yes, 1989. And I remember being a Hill staffer for about 10 years before I went to United Fresh to run the government relations team. We were always looked at to we worked bipartisanly at that time, fixing problems. People would come to you, here's our challenge, here's our issues. And, you'd get a bunch of staffers or members of Congress together who wanted to solve these problems and go at it and fix it. That's changed a lot now, that the dynamics have changed in DC, as you hear and see every day. But I do still think there's opportunities to engage in ways that are effective for the industry, for the clients, my clients. But so I'm excited. I'm excited about this. I started this in October. I've got a good set of clients already. I've got a lot of different issues I'm working on that, quite frankly, I didn't get a chance to work on at
Really?
at the trade association. So
I like what you said about prioritizing, right?
Yeah.
So you're able to prioritize those clients' needs, which if you don't have a presence in Washington and if you've never been, you need one.
Yeah.
So, I've my trips are far and few between, but I've been to the policy conference several times. It is politically charging for, you come back a little bit more kind of pumped up. It's kind of like watching Rocky, or we
Right.
talked about watching Top Gun 2 on the way
Right.
here.
Right.
So it gets you pumped up. But yeah, it's a different world, and if you don't know the ins and outs, I mean, frankly, for me, sometimes it's a little bit discouraging. I felt like, we talk about the same issues. And then I briefly mentioned a little bit ago that, it's whether or not Congress is in session, they're not in session, it's an election year, it's not an election year, it's the year
Right.
after an election.
Right.
I mean, what is the sweet spot? Is there 1 year out of a presidential term that
Usually the first year.
really?
Yeah. And if you look, I've never really been asked that question, but my instincts would say your first year, because no matter if you're getting, no matter if it's a new administration coming in, that first year they're going to have a lot of that energy and support behind them from the country, hopefully from their supporters in Congress, to really set the agenda for what they want to do for the next the 4 years that they're in session, or in the White House. So I think that's really one of those. If you put me, kind of press me on that, it'd be the first year. It gets tricky this year, and in terms of presidential election. The further we get into the spring and the summer, the less likely we're going to be able to action on any major issues.
So major issues.
Yeah.
Farm bill,
immigration,
childhood nutrition,
environmental issues, regulatory reform. All of that is really top of mind, for every year, for every Congress, and for the industry, quite frankly. So I think that when you look at the programs and the opportunities for industry, I still think things are looking up. The Farm Bill is a great opportunity to.
Has there been anything added to the? I know that it
Sure.
grows, right? Has there anything been added recently that would be of particular interest?
So the last time the Farm Bill was reauthorized was 2018. So right now we're in the middle of the Farm Bill debate in Congress. So it's the goal of this, to have a Farm Bill passed by the end of this year. A new Farm Bill. So it's every 5 to 6 years they have to reauthorize the Farm Bill. It's very tricky, and
it takes 5 years to do it.
And it takes about 5. Yeah, I don't know if it takes 5 years, but certainly they start. That last year of the bill, they certainly get really active in doing Farm Bill. So right now, a lot of the groups, Fresh Produce and and others, are positioning themselves with members of Congress, the Senate and House Ag Committee, on what priorities they think are important for them to be included in the Farm Bill. I said this recently. I look at the Farm Bill, and when I first started on Capitol Hill as a staffer, and then my early time at United, the Farm Bill wasn't a big issue for our industry. It was the title, what we call a Title I group. So cotton, corn, rice, peanuts. The folks, that they dominated the Farm Bill debate. We have, starting in 2002 and especially 2008 Farm Bill, we've really been able to expand our presence in the Farm Bill, where now it is the single largest federal program that provides resources to our industry. So in research and food safety and sanitary, phytosanitary, the state block grant program.
That all rolls up?
That all rolls up into the Farm Bill.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And it's about, $800-900 million a year that you see in the Farm Bill. So, billions of dollars over the life. WIC is not. Really? It's again, it goes.
It was at a point.
But food, no, it's in child nutrition.
Oh, okay.
So, but it is, WIC is in. It has to be funded every year through the appropriations, the annual funding programs that get funded every to keep the government running.
Gotcha. The
SNAP program, so food is in the Farm Bill, and that represents about 75 to 80% of the Farm Bill right now. And that's a big issue. And why is a food assistance program part of the Farm Bill debate? Well, Congress's infinite wisdom in the early 70s, they connected the two, because when you look at the makeup of Congress, in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, and even beyond, very rural districts. Now there's less than 8% of the districts that are strictly rural that really have a lot of farms in their congressional districts. So attaching something like a food stamp program, which impacts every congressional district across the country, It's important to urban congressional members, suburban, obviously rural. That has to that connection between farm programs and food nutrition programs like SNAP bring together very unique partners in the political process to get enough people to pass a bill, to get enough members of Congress to pass a bill, pass the farm bill. It's there for political purposes. It's also there because it makes sense because the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they run the SNAP program. It's connected to food in so many different ways, obviously, with the folks who have to, that use the SNAP program, participate in the SNAP program. So there's a good connection there. And right now, the problem that Congress has is funding. There's a lot of great ideas out there, including some from our industry, to add to the next farm bill, but there's not a lot of new money, new resources out there to fund all this stuff. So they're really struggling right now to figure out what's that sweet spot of potentially finding some money somewhere to fund a bunch of new programs or add money to current programs that they really like, and then pass it so they can get support from Democrats and Republicans. Because it's not going to be one party or the other. It's going to pass the farm bill.
And if there was anything from like a new production perspective, like I'm talking about domestic growers, I talk about farming almost like the steel industry. You just don't hear about people just, I am going to get in the steel business. It doesn't happen anymore, right?
Right.
Farming to a large degree as well.
Yeah.
But that's at the state level, right? That support.
Yes.
If you were somebody that wanted to get into farming.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It's not easy. My family, I probably didn't know this. I grew up in North Central Florida, and we have a very small family farm there. It was in citrus for 100 years, and my father passed away a couple of years ago, and he had converted a lot of it to peaches and plums and grapes and all sorts of stuff. He just replanted just to try things out. And so when he passed away, I'm an only child, so I had to come down and start figuring that out. It's not easy. It's not easy to figure it out. And
it's a big job.
So I've been spending more time down here with my mom and the family. Fortunately, I have cousins and stuff that can help out. And yeah, it's tough to get into, even when you think you've been a part of it all your life. But I've been looking at it obviously from a totally different perspective, from a policy, not a real like on the ground perspective.
But so the answer is, it would be somebody would require state level support. Like there's no federal support to get from a new producers.
Well, no, there's like beginning farmer programs at USDA. Yeah, there are that helps for grants and funding, and there's
I know TDA does a lot of stuff in Texas, obviously.
So for our industry, the states are very involved because of the state block grant program, the special crop state block program. So the states have funding that comes through the Farm Bill, through USDA, and they then are allowed to look at state, local, regional projects in their state to really highlight to help growers be more competitive. So it's a wide. It could be marketing, it could be food safety training, it could be a whole host of different export promotion, but it could be a whole host of things that the states are focusing on that helps our industry in each state, and it's very state specific. I always tell folks it's great, but it's also a challenge in our industry. What a citrus grower in California may need to make his or her business profitable or successful is very different than what a citrus grower in Texas, and even a citrus grower here in Florida, needs to make their businesses. And so having the diversity of programs that we have pushed in the Farm Bill and other areas that allow the flexibility to really tap into more of the direct support to prop up farms, to make them more successful, is one of the beauties.
There's a ton of interest, obviously, in DC. I mean, how is produce perceived? I mean, is it?
Great question. I think, I think the industry is great. I mean, we have I call us a lot of times the white hat. I mean, we're healthy. People are interested, in learning about what the new kind of, fruit or vegetable is that everybody's talking about, or what's coming out there online is different. The staffs of the, people who work in government, they go to the store every day and, they see the brands that, come to their door,
Yeah.
It's really, so they're very
staffers several times. And in my mind, I keep thinking about the old Fresh Festival days when the staffers would line up
with their bag.
After so there was I don't know, I guess if I'm describing it right, but it was like a mini expo inside the cafeteria, I think it was.
It was
I don't remember what building.
Yeah,
but...
we moved it around.
Okay.
But it was a lot of times it was in, because that was really the biggest space, was so many people wanted to come, and we called it Fresh Festival on Capitol Hill, and it had booths from, I mean, like a mini SEPC at some level, that were giving out samples, but you were interacting with members of Congress and a lot of staff who love going to things that have free food and free alcohol.
And needed all the food they could get.
Yeah.
So
they'd come with bags.
Most of these shows, like the local food bank, these organizations like SCPC, they'll work with a food bank, they'll come and they'll pick up anything that exhibitors don't take back with them.
We would work with like DC Central Kitchen.
Oh, really?
Speaking of, and the local food bank.
I just figured it all went.
No, there was actually some left, every now
Surprising.
and then. And so we did work with the local charities there to give them support and things like that with what was left over. But yeah, it was quite a scene back in the early days. Yeah. But it was great. It was great.
Well, I kind of diverted. You were talking about that. I don't know if you finished with your thoughts on the perception of the industry in DC.
Speaking of the perception, Fresh Festival was a big hit.
Yeah.
So you could go, so they really, I could, as a lobbyist, as somebody who worked in DC, I could go into an office and, they may not know who I am, but, some of those folks would say, oh, you guys do that Fresh Festival on Capitol Hill. And instantly you got
that's cool.
You got feedback and they were interested. But I would say, yes, I think we're seen in high esteem. We're very popular in terms of the products we make, the products we grow. Mm-hmm. And I think that's translated into being very, we've worked with Republican, Democratic administrations, Republican, Democratic Congresses. We're very, our industry really crosses over a lot of the political, dynamics that you see every day. In
There's some tough ones.
And certain industries struggle with that.
I know, the domestic and import,
yes.
With what's happening on the border right now, there has to be concern about continuity of supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
We had the issue with the avocado inspector, I think it was last year, and all that kind of shut down at a really bad, I think it was right around Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Really bad timing. So are you hearing concern? Obviously with our domestic growers, we just mentioned there's not a lot of folks getting into the farming business. So we're relying more and more on imports.
We are. And that's, obviously the import-export issues, the challenges with product is always going to be there. The tension's going to be there. The growers here in Florida and the South have struggled a lot with the challenges with the foreign competition. But there also is a consumer demand that can't be met right now by the domestic industry. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. And that's why you've got a lot of investment going back and forth between domestic and international production. I would also argue that the way that business, the customer, the supplier side has changed in dynamics too. 20, 30 years ago, you had 10 or 15 different tomato suppliers that a retailer would go to. Now they want one or two. And you as a business got to decide if you want to be that or not. Now, I'm oversimplifying that, and there are exceptions to the rule. But I think when you look at the way that's changed, that transactional dynamic, it's also impacted the way produce moves, the supply chain moves here in the United States in particular.
And year-round supply.
Year-round, that's right. And you need to be year-round. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You got to, and so.
When we were kids, it was what's in season. You
season?
got what's in season, and when it was out of season.
Just didn't have it. You didn't care. Yeah, exactly. You didn't
care.
Like
but Kramer and the oh god, I forgot what kind of. Yeah. What was it? What was he eating? Was it no Mackinac peaches? Mackinac peaches. Oh man.
You mentioned the border. You mentioned the labor issues. Again, that's very front and center. You've seen a lot happening in Congress about whether they're going to do a border security deal or not. Certainly you guys in Texas, you see it firsthand every day. If you're in South Texas, and I think that until we can get that resolved, we're not going to go back to helping agriculture, getting an agriculture labor bill moving forward. And I hate to say that, and it's been something that this industry has consistently fought for 30 plus years, and We've heard every story we can from Congress of why they can or cannot do it. It just needs some strong leadership, quite frankly. And we've been close a few times, but you really need that strong leadership who's not going to blink when the pressure gets on from whatever groups and your colleagues on the Hill are going to throw at you if you really want to try to do this. Mm-hmm. And too often lately they have blinked, and they just they want to pull back. So I really think that if you could get a border security type bill, tie agriculture, tie a few other areas like Dreamers to it, that's the ticket at some point to kind of move something, in Congress. But I don't see it. Obviously, again, election year, I don't really see certainly nothing like that happening. We were just talking about, we saw a border deal that looked pretty good on paper fall apart because of political pressures. And so I don't think it's going to be a political kind of hammer, and an issue in the campaigns between now and November, on both in the presidential election, but also in congressional elections.
I mean, to say it's a huge distraction is not really fair, because it is what it is. I mean, it's an issue.
Yeah.
It deserves but it takes away resources, right?
Yeah. It takes away time, energy, and resources that can be spent on a lot of other good things.
I'm copied on emails about waits at bridges and how long trucks are taking to cross, and I'm like, we're one hiccup away from just pandemonium, which is scary.
Right, it is.
And we're keeping it under control right now, but with everything that's happening, it's scary to think that we're teetering on some very
much so. It's very concerning, and people hear what they want to hear about the issue, and make their own judgment on what's happening or not happening, success or not. And it is an issue, and the whole range of immigration issues. This country has to, and our political leaders have got to sit down and really try to tackle this. At some point, it's gonna, because like you said, we're teetering right now on some very significant challenges.
The other thing that concerns me is transportation.
Yeah.
I get copied on some stuff about the availability to load ratio, and it's way out of whack. There's just not folks getting into that line of work like they did when they came back from Vietnam or out of service. Or my father was in transportation. He's since retired, but a lot of owner operators back in the 70s, 80s, 90s.
They're not there anymore.
They're not there anymore. I learned how to drive a semi in the backfield of our property, and kind of just turned me loose, and somewhat half figured it out, and he taught me, and that's how people just don't have those opportunities.
They don't.
You will. So that concerns me a lot.
Yeah, the way the transportation infrastructure, and again, to what you said, the lack of folks who are interested in going into that type of business, whether you're a owner operator or you're working for a large firm, we saw so much happen. We learned so much happen in COVID. We learned about the supply chains across all sectors of business that we never even, I think, thought of, in terms of what could happen.
I talk about stockouts at retail. I mean, it would be like grounds for termination, and I've never seen a stockout before. And then all of a sudden, it's a thing.
And it's almost, I almost feel like at some level we've gotten away from, we've not forgotten about it, but we forgot what was going on at that moment and that juncture of what happened in the global marketplace. I wish we could do more. I mean, I really do. Even in the agriculture and the food space, if I had a magic wand, I would have a supply chain critical infrastructure title of the Farm Bill, be a new title.
Yeah.
Because of what happened, what was happening. And it's still not correct. I mean, completely fixed. But it fascinates me that more attention has not been paid in this Farm Bill that we're talking about now, that based on what happened during the COVID years. On the good side, this was a good week for the fresh produce industry in D.C.
Okay.
A couple things. As I mentioned, the federal funding bill, the ag appropriations bill, passed Congress. It had some good things in there. The WIC program was fully funded. That was a big issue for quite some time. There wasn't.
That's annual, you said?
Yes, that's an annual funding bill. And that's when you hear government shutdowns and they're going to shut down or not. These are the bills that they are passing. They have to pass each year to keep the government running. So either they're going to pass a new bill that has new funding for the next year, or they're going to just keep the current programs and do what they call a continuing resolution. Again, we don't need to get into that, but they did pass the bill. It had full funding of WIC. Congratulations to a lot of the groups that spent a lot of time in that, because it really would have impacted fresh produce in terms of the availability of fresh produce for those who participate in the WIC program. When you start slashing money in a program like that, the first things that are going to be looked at to reduce is those products, quite frankly, that are more expensive. And fresh produce is expensive. But we've been fortunate as an industry with the work that United, IFPA, and others have done of building a solid case for having more investments in WIC funding to help them purchase or have fruits and vegetables for young children and mothers.
But we're far away from making a mandate, right? I mean, I know.
Oh no,
that's like a dream.
You mean like a mandate of healthy foods?
Certain percentage, yeah.
Yes, we are. And
you're up
WIC's
against...
the closest thing to it, though.
Okay.
WIC is, quote unquote, almost a prescription. A certain amount of money can be funded for fruits and vegetables, dairy, cheese, other products, other types of products. So that was successful in that bill, got fully funded. The program that funds the urban ag and innovation office at USDA, that had been slashed to zero. That got funded at, I think, $7.5 million. And that's really to help some of the controlled environment growers. It helps them have a presence at USDA and look at programs throughout USDA that can be channeled through that office and help those people who are trying to grow that part of the business. We also, in the House Ag Committee, speaking of Farm Bill, but the House Ag Committee just released this week their bipartisan set of recommendations on ag labor reform. That was established last year, and they did a lot of work listening to different sectors of agriculture. And there's some really good ideas in there. And whenever you can get, especially in the House, Democrats and Republicans agreeing on agriculture labor, that's important.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, now the next step is taking those policy or, creating legislation and all that stuff. But
garnering interest is...
Yes, but having the Ag Committee focus on ag labor, because the Farm Bill cannot fix ag labor. A lot of people ask that. And, why can't you just put ag labor reform in the farm? Well, it doesn't fit in there. It's not the jurisdiction of the Ag Committee. It's the Labor Committee. Yeah, another committee kind of helps develop that legislation and pass it. So, this is the closest they could probably get to really weighing in. So we'll see what happens with it in terms of those recommendations if it comes to developing.
Labor is huge, but obviously a solved labor issue, ag labor issue, could promote more new production, new producers.
100%.
Right. Water, I don't even think we don't have time for water. We're gonna have to do.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do another show on water.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how up to date you keep on the Mexico
I've
treaty.
Heard a lot. Okay. Some of our good friends in South Texas keep me up to date.
There's a lot going on there. But before we go, I highly encourage anyone that hasn't been to Washington, even if they've been on a family trip per se, but really on a more focused basis, seek out Robert, attend IFPA. I think it's moved now. I don't know. It's moved to June.
Yep.
IFPA's policy conference. Highly recommend it. Connect with somebody that knows their way around. I've just always assumed this, but you worked with John McClung at one point, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
John,
one of my mentors.
Same. John was one of the first friendly faces I met when I moved to South Texas over 20 years ago. Super good man. I miss him. Walking on the hill with him was like, he was a rock star.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I mean, he just came to life, when he was there. So,
well, let me make one more. I know we got to go, but let me make one more plug about attending the Washington conference. I was part of that conference since its very beginning, and when I first started at United, I mean, it's become the center point of the fresh produce industries. Days on Capitol Hills, and it really does make a big difference for those in DC, whether you're me or IFPA staff or other associations that represent fresh produce. Having the industry come together one time a year to go to the Hill, talk about their issues. I know sometimes it feels frustrating and people bang their head up against the wall after they've been to these offices, but it does make a big difference for us, for all of us who work in that area every day, of the year representing the industry. So I highly, to your point, Ed, I highly recommend you trying to attend this year, or the industry trying to attend this year.
The move and the date, the what was the reasoning behind it? Or was that something that happened before you?
No, it was planned before I left. September had become such a volatile month in Washington, D.C. I mean, especially during election years. I go back to that. I mean, we've had the government shut down during the middle of the conference.
Yeah.
And, it's just been all these different things that have happened. September's a funky month. June is a very nice sweet spot because a lot can happen in June.
Oh, I like it.
And the weather's better.
I have two kids. One's older now,
Yeah.
but one in high school still. And when he was in high school, I always wanted to take him, but it was football season.
Yeah, or
So
football.
he-
Yeah.
So he never could go. He played football. And
Yeah.
so now that it's in June, my daughter's a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
Like, I want to take her with so
Yeah.
she can be exposed to.
No, it's great. I think the move's going to be great for the conference, for the industry. And I think, if folks that are listening to this, if they can make it there, please do so. You will get a lot of value by helping you will understand better. Everybody in this convention and outside are touched by the government in some way. I know that you don't think so, but some people don't think. But so if you don't get engaged, you can't really complain about it.
Robert, before we go, how can people find you?
You can contact me on email at rguenther@btgr365.com. That's probably the best way to reach out to me. Okay. I've got my website up or coming soon, hopefully. I'll be promoting that as well down the road. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Just search my name and connect to me that way as well. So I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for being with us.
Ed, thanks.
We'll be right back.